No, go ahead. I can hear you now. What's up?
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to kind of throw, I'm kind of mulling through this as I'm listening on my drive, and I wanted to approach this from perhaps another angle. And we kind of alluded to this earlier when the comment was made that crypto isn't property, et cetera, yada yada. Uh, I the more I think about it, the more I think that fiat falls under a very similar concept, except for when you're holding the slips of paper in your possession somewhere, or deposit the slips of paper into said vault that you can say you have a claim to X number of Benjamin Franklin printed papers. Uh, but anytime after that, you're looking at ones and zeros in a computer system that aren't property for the same reasons that crypto isn't property. They just hold an inherent value that you deem is worth, and you have a claim to it based off of an agreement with the bank, right? So at any point that you lose the physical property, or don't exchange the physical property, which most taxes are paid digitally, right, for the overwhelming majority of people, it's hard to make the claim that you are therefore, like, if someone were to have a chip on their shoulder and say, why aren't I getting stimulus checks? I paid my taxes or whatever. You exchanged some bits of data from one group to another. And granted, it may have been against your will and extorted from you, but it doesn't change the fact that what they've done isn't even an extraction of property in the overwhelming majority of cases. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that, see if I'm off.
Shepard, you're shaking your
Yeah,
head.
I don't agree, and the reason I don't agree, and I agree that they are just little bits of whatever out there, but I do think they have real value because you can take those little digital bits or bytes or whatever, and you can trade them in for a car. And so they do have value, not real value, but the only reason they have value is because other people think they have value. So I think we are still responsible for that. I,
Can I challenge that perhaps a little bit?
yes, please.
So let's look at this from the perspective of other digital
It's Shepard's show now.
right?
I'll be back.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was joking.
So-
Please continue. No, yeah, go ahead.
So if you were to take, say, a copy of music that you had on your computer, and you were able to come to an agreement with someone to trade that copy of the MP3 file for X number of Satoshis, whatever small number of Bitcoin you want to sell that for, that transaction would have that set of bits in the MP3 would have value because it was agreed that it has that value, much like the way any form of currency works. It's a method by which goods are exchanged rather than for which goods are exchanged nowadays, especially. And so it doesn't really distinguish itself from any other form of intellectual property, essentially a pattern of a unique set of bits that represents, Patrick's dollars or my dollars or your dollars, that would be any distinguishable in an ethical form from, say, trading an MP3 that would have a value in a transaction.
Interesting. I'm not sure that I follow completely, but as far as I follow, I think you're exactly right. I do wonder though if we're talking about two different things. Because in the dollar bill thing, the $1,200 that we started with, and I'm not sure which of the analogies we're on. I want to make another one that is so good, but I don't want to confuse it with another analogy. Whichever scenario we're on, there was something that was taken from somebody else, and then the thief wants to give you a portion of that, and that just seems wrong. Does that play into the MP3 scenario?
Well, yeah. So sure, say someone takes your MP3 off of your computer, right, and wants to give you back the MP3 or whatever. They took a certain combination of bits and wants to give it back. Does it change whether or not that you lost property? For example, you could always repeat the pattern. acquire a new set of bits with the exact same thing. It all really does tie back into intellectual property, because patterns are inherently repeatable. No matter how difficult that process may be, there's no scarcity to the pattern. Just like strumming a guitar in a certain way isn't inherently scarce. The bits on the computer aren't inherently scarce either.
Are you making the argument that U.S. dollars are not property?
I believe that I am making the argument that U.S. dollars not in physical form are not property. I think I'm going that far.
Interesting. So,
for the same reason that crypto is not property, I would say that any digital U.S. currency that you own, quote unquote, would also fall under the same rules.
Okay, what about this? And I'm sorry to do another analogy, but I love them and I want to confuse it more. Somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I broke into a bunch of Bitcoin wallets, and I got some money from you, and I got some from Christian, and I got some from Patrick. Hey, here, do you want a little bit of it?" And the only crypto they have is stolen. It is still property at that point, isn't it?
I would say no. I would say that's why wallet security is so important to crypto technologies, because if your wallet is altered in some way, the pattern of bits is changed that represents your wallet, you have lost nothing. There is no theft. You perhaps lost the particular pattern of bits that represents what you had. You could attempt to reconstruct those for the same reasons that, creating new Bitcoins with identical tags, if someone were to copy your wallet directly, wouldn't be stealing either. There's no loss besides a perceived value, right, in those bits. So that, I guess that's where I'm coming at this from. Does that make any sense?
For the record, I agree with his position on cryptocurrency not being property and that not being theft. But I'm enjoying somebody else making arguments for a change, so I'm going to continue smoking my pipe.
You put that in your pipe and smoke it. I don't know. Maybe I don't. Could it be an ignorance on my part of technology? I might be missing something there. I can wrap my head around bicycles or dollar bills, but and I don't want to wimp out of this from an intellectual standpoint, but I'm having trouble understanding how that would not be, how it would not be theft. Bitcoin or whatever. Somebody looks through my window and sees my 12 keys or words or whatever, and then they go and get into the wallet and transfer all the money to themselves. I would think that would be theft. Maybe I don't know technology well enough.
It's
can I? Oh, sorry.
Ahead.
I'll let you go. I've talked enough.
No, it's fine. You can take it or me. You want to do it?
Well, I was going to try approaching this from just try to reach some common ground. So I just wanted to see real quick what your stance on is intellectual property. Like, is someone's song theirs and they have total right to limit or distribute it or prevent someone from distributing it as they please?
No.
Okay. So, and what's your justification for that? So I can see if maybe we're missing some kind of commonality there.
Well, I think that if somebody comes up, and I don't have a good intellectual one, but if I see somebody walking down the road and they're the first person to ever use an umbrella and it's raining and they're staying dry, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I don't think it's cool for them to say, well, no, you can't use an umbrella for 18 years without paying me for it. I know that's simplistic, but that's about as far as I can go. I think that's wrong. So that's why I don't believe in intellectual property, at least from that standpoint. And I might be at too low of a level here.
No, I just want to. I am just trying to reach like a common ground, and I think what you're making is a value on scarcity, right? The person loses nothing if you also walk down the street with an umbrella, besides some value that they personally perceived into their coming up with of the idea. Am I correct in saying that?
I agree.
And I think if you take that line of thinking and move it towards any other replicable pattern, right? So I own Bitcoin, for example, and I try to keep my wallet as secure as possible, because at the end of the day, if someone were to change, modify, alter, or copy, I think is the easiest example, copy my bits over from one computer to another, it doesn't mean that I have lost anything other than the perceived value that I had in that particular arrangements of bits. So it's the same kind of scenario as someone walking down an umbrella with the street with the umbrella and saying you can't do that. Just because I have a perceived value in the pattern does not mean that there is value in the pattern, because there is no scarcity. Sorry, I should have said that.
But it seems to me like there would be scarcity. Maybe I don't understand crypto well enough, but if I have $100 worth in my wallet and I leave my keys laying on the dash of my car, you look through, you see the 12 keys, you type it into your wallet, or you open my wallet, you take that money and you go buy something with it, and then I go back in and try to get that $100 worth of crypto I have. It is no longer there for me to use. So there has been an actual loss. Am I missing that?
Yeah, so let's look at this from, okay, you said bicycles, right? You like to look at it from that perspective. If someone were to take your bicycle, right, and they were to take your bicycle away from you, you couldn't hop onto your computer and without exchanging any funds create a new bicycle, right?
Correct.
The bicycle is more than a pattern. It's raw materials. It's a physical object. It occupies space. It has, all these different attributes that make it a tangible thing. What crypto is an arrangement of electrons in a memory module. And you can always, if you are knowledgeable enough, infinitely replicate that particular series of ones and zeros. If one were to be knowledgeable enough, you could make 1 billion of them with doing nothing but typing on a computer. It requires no additional input of material resources other than your own willingness to do so. And that's the big separation between physical and digital property, is because these patterns are infinitely replicable to the maximum of storage on a computer. It can't be compared to physical property on the same way. There's only so much aluminum, right? If we had the capacity to create, infinite storage or whatever, you could create the same Bitcoin infinitely by running a simple line of code to distribute those ones and zeros exactly how you need them. Does that maybe make bridge the gap a little bit?
I still don't. Maybe I just don't understand. I must not understand technology well enough, because I would still think that if I had something that I could go out and buy $100 worth of hamburgers with, and now I don't, and it's because you took it from me. Yeah, I could go out and build another bicycle, or I could build another crypto. Maybe I just don't understand what crypto is.
Okay. Well, I feel like, I'm more than happy to pass the torch at this point. I feel like I've made my piece, at least.
I mean, I'll pick it up. I'll take the ball and run with it. Thanks for your call, man.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Take it easy. This is fun. We need to do this more
often.
It
is. I am so confounded right now, and I love that, because, yeah, I love being the dumbest guy in the room. This is cool. I'm learning.
So we agree that intellectual property is not a valid form of property, which is just a fancy way of saying that, like, patterns, arrangements of actual property is not in and of itself property. The way property is arranged is not property. Another thing, another step 2 would be value is not property. Value is a subjective thing that you hold between your two ears about a piece of property. So,
correct.
Value is not something that can be owned or stolen or whatever. That's just a subjective sort of emotional state in one's mind. That's what value is. So Bitcoin is best thought of as a value exchange platform, not a property exchange platform. So you have a pattern of bits that the network attempts to make scarce or hard to access for other people, and you use that network with agreed upon rules. Like, it's not no one owns Bitcoin. It's just a bunch of people's computers talking to each other for the purposes of exchanging value. And if somebody looks through your window and copies down your 12 words or whatever, they have affected your actual property precisely zero. They have, unless they trespassed, but that's a different property crime that we're not really talking about. You know, like unless they like broke in and grabbed your computer. Now we're talking about real property, or your hard drive, which is actual physical property that patterns are stored on. If they just look at your patterns and copy those patterns down, and the network that you are storing your value on allows them to use the patterns that they copied down to move that value around, that has not affected any of your actual property. It may have affected something that you value. You have look at that face.
I disagree so vehemently, and yet you guys are so smart that I figure I must be wrong. But if I come to your house and I kick the door in, that's a physical thing. But if you use one of those little swipe cards to get in your house, and I can figure out how to replicate that digitally, can I then come and use that to get in your house, and I'm no longer breaking into your house because it's not a physical key that I'm using?
You're equating the pattern, which is intellectual property, to your physical house, which is a disanalogy. Like, the pattern of cryptocurrency is not the same thing as your actual physical scarce house. So an MP3 is another example. Like, if I listen to your MP3 and I'm really skilled and I write down a bunch of zeros and ones to copy that song, to arrange my pattern of my hard drive in the same pattern as the one on your hard drive, which allows me to then play that song, I have stolen from you, not at all. You may think that, so like if you valued that MP3, like if you had the only MP3 song, the only copy of that file in existence, you would probably value that file highly, and other people might value access to that file highly. If I were able to, look over your shoulder and write down the zeros and ones of that song onto my hard drive, now there's two copies, which would, supply and demand, have the value, the perceived value of your file, because now there's two of them. It's half as scarce, but nothing has been stolen from you. Value has moved, but value is not property.
Huh. So there's no such, you can't
I'm having
steal
a
Bitcoin
blast.
from people. I'm just confounded. I would think that if I had something that I was storing my value, we're using that word in two different ways, but I was storing my dollars, my net worth, in a Bitcoin wallet, and without my permission, you went into the wallet and you took that. It's not like I still have $1 million or $100 and you now have $100 also. Only one of us can take that and sell it to somebody else. So, and I no longer now have a net worth of $100. I now have a net worth of zero, and you have added $100 to your balance sheet. And isn't that how crypto works? Like,
you still possess your hard drive with the exact same pattern on it as you did before. It's just that no one values your pattern anymore, because somebody else added a new transaction to the network, and people value what that transaction did based on the rules of the Bitcoin network. Like, that's just the rules of the network that is owned by nobody, and it's just a way computers interact. So other people, your concern is other people's value of the pattern that you hold. And Bitcoin and somebody made this comment that it can be property because it's scarcity. It's a false scarcity. It's not actual scarcity. It's just a mathematical algorithm, a way of arranging property. But there's nothing actually physically scarce about it, because I can copy.
You should see my wallet, but you should see my wallet. It is very scarce in my wallet. There's very little Bitcoin there.
That's unfortunate.
But to have that $100 that I have taken from me, I have a lot of, I don't know where to go thinking about this, because I feel like I have it solved so well. Maybe I need to
you can't take
know
value.
more about technology.
I can't steal value. Value is not property. I cannot steal value. And if I can move value without touching your property in any way, you can't call that theft. That's the same argument for pirating songs. I have something that other people value that I moved without touching or affecting your actual property at all.
I feel like I'm the only guy not getting this. So I'm going to say that I disagree, but I'm probably wrong, but I don't get it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
We can chat more later. And I'm sure there's other analogies as well. Question from Daniel. Can you own a website domain? I don't think so. It's a pattern. That is not property. You might have a contractual agreement with a domain registrar that will have them keep a record in their servers that is an actual piece of property, which is their servers. But the domain itself is intellectual property. That's not a valid form of property. And well, I don't want to. He said he's done talking about cryptocurrency being property. So I don't want to keep hammering that.
Oh, I'm not done. I'm just not. I don't feel like I'm understanding any better. Like I feel like I'm slowing y'all down because I'm not getting it. I'm happy to talk about it more. Like I'd love to. I just don't want to bore everybody. If everybody's getting it except me, I don't want to slow y'all down.
Let's see. Mark says the value of the Bitcoin to you relies on the secrecy of your key. If the secrecy is lost, the value is lost. So keeping it really secret is important. Yes. It's like maybe that's a good way of thinking about it. It's like a secret. If you know a secret in your head, and it's a piece of information. Let's say a trade secret. Let's say it's the recipe for Coca-Cola. Well, that's a very, very valuable thing. Let's say that the recipe hasn't already been released to the world. Let's say you are the only one with it in your head. You have a secret. The secret is not property, but it has a lot of value to a lot of people. And if you're not careful, that secret might get out, in which case you will sort of lose your ability to control that value. Aha! Thank you, Mark. That was helpful.
That's making more sense. Yeah, thank you.
So your wallet on your computer hard drive would be analogous to your brain holding a secret that other people highly valued. Aha!
Okay. Interesting. This is going to take me hours of mulling over, but I love that. That's making me think, okay, now I've got something to chew on.
Okay, good. Good job, Mark. Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, and so that's going back to Christian's USD not being, US fiat Fed bucks not being property when it's in digital form. To me, let me think through this. This is a novel thought for me. I need to think through it more. But when you deposit money into a bank, I think it even says in bank agreements that like they own, that you're handing over ownership of the money, and then they just basically give you an accounting book with a claim to whenever you want withdraw money, to the amount that you deposited or whatever. So if it becomes digital, it's not like most of society is not run via cash these days, right? So like you get paid, paycheck comes in, usually gets direct deposited into your bank account. It's not like cash is ever floating around and being transferred much these days. If it's all digital records and databases, then maybe it is a value exchange medium, much like Bitcoin, the more it goes digital. I'm gonna have to think about that. It's good. Mark says, I think the free market will eventually evolve crypto secrecy insurance. I agree as well. And there'll be different rates for different currencies based on their security, which would make a lot of sense, actually. So the more secure coins that are harder to breach would have a lower insurance cost.